Okay, cool. Well, I'll come back around and do an intro. So if you're good with just a rolling start, we'll rock out with that.
Yeah.
So welcome to the Sales Life, Nina Sossamon-Pogue. Thanks so much I finally chased you down, and finally we were able to get together and have this conversation. So thank you so much for coming on.
I'm just thrilled to be here, and I'm glad you chased me down. Appreciate it.
So let's start off. The book is absolutely amazing to me, and I want to come back around to that. It's so good that I just kind of want to hold that juice back just a little bit and talk about something else that was like literally made me jump out of my seat at work. Is I have notifications on Nina Sossamon-Pogue on Twitter, and you made the notification that you were launching a podcast, and I am so happy about it. So for those who may not know what your podcast is, what's the name of it and what is it about?
Well, we launched it a little more than a month ago with 6 episodes. I think we're up to 12. So it's still very new. The name of it is This Seriously Sucks, the right podcast when life goes seriously wrong. And it's the Don't Jump Off the Bridge podcast for anybody going through a tough time, or just the inspirational podcast for anybody who feels like life is just too hard. Like I just am done. It's just too hard. So we have encouraging words to keep going for whatever tough thing, whatever adversity you're facing, or just the bad space you might be in. We all go through tough chapters.
Yeah, and I think, Nina, that what's important with your message is that you let people know that they're not alone. Because I know when I've been in some of my desperate situations and darkest moments, you really feel kind of shut out from the world, and you really feel exiled, and you feel like that everybody is looking at you, and that you've got to figure this, that you're all alone. And your podcast speaks to that nature and really sheds light that, look, I've been where you're at, if not worse, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's what is really that connects with people, because if people looked at my resume, so I was a member of the U.S. gymnastics team, I was a news anchor that everybody loved, Nina, and then I won an Emmy, and I went on into tech and we did an IPO. Like I've had this magical, wonderful life. Everybody thinks that I'm just, going to spout wisdom about how to be successful, but that's not what this is. I think it's more important that we talk about I'm just a normal person, like you're just a normal person, and I have had really tough times and thought horrible things about myself and self-doubt and had suicidal thoughts during a trauma in my life. And until all of us start not just doing our resume, but what I call, and you're going to like this because I'm getting ready to do a whole piece on this, what I call your reverse resume.
Ooh.
Until people start talking about the really tough times and the dark thoughts that they have, then people are going to continue to feel like everybody's figured it out but them. None of us have figured it out. So the podcast is designed to be a safe space for people to come listen to not just me talk about how I got through really dark times, but all sorts of individuals. And the way I've structured it, and again, it's early, but I'm really excited about this, is you can listen to the first 6 episodes, which are me just unpacking my book really quickly for anyone who just doesn't even want to sit down and read, because sometimes we're in the middle of some really deep shit. You don't want to even read a book.
Right.
So that's the first 6 episodes. But after that, the episodes are listed not by the person who I'm interviewing, but by their circumstance. So there's one for addiction. There's one for sex trafficking. There's one for a cancer diagnosis. There's like whatever it is, your thing. There's somebody in there who's done it, who's gone through it, who knows a little bit, not exactly what your story is. We're all different, but knows sort of through it.
I like that because it's one of those where it's more of a reference guide. So if you're feeling a certain kind of way or going through a certain kind of instance, does the title speak to that when you do your title, so that way the listener knows what they're working with or going to be listening to?
Yeah. So I use the word this seriously sucks. And my book is This Is Not the End. So I use this capital T, capital H, capital I, capital S, like all caps, this, for whatever the big thing is that you're going through or that I'm talking about. So each episode is listed by the this. And in the marketing material that I've created, it says this equals addiction. This equals incarceration.
Oh.
This equals married to a narcissist. This, like, so whatever it is that you're in the middle of, you should be able just to find it by the episode. The first thing in the episode will be what it's about.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So how do you find your guest?
It's been really interesting. So I did learn, one of the reasons I wanted to do this is because, one, I was working with a book cohort when I wrote my book, and I met other amazing people with amazing stories. And I'm a storyteller by nature, having been a journalist and then working in marketing, which is just telling your company's story, your product stories.
Sure.
So I met these people. I wanted to tell everybody's stories, and I knew they were writing their own books, but I wanted to tell it from my point of view because I just like to do that.
Right.
So this was a way to grab some of those folks and let me tell their story and put it out there myself, because I just want everybody to know about these people. They're amazing. Everyone on my podcast is at least 10 years past their big this. So they have real learnings and teachings. So we'll preface with that. I say we speak from our scars, not our wounds. Everybody needs to have healed those wounds. And I really believe we have to speak from our scars, not our wounds. So anybody that still has a bit of an open wound, I don't invite on the podcast. They're still working through it. So really, these are people who have worked through it, who have been in the dark space, worked through it, and understand how they got through it. So they have something to offer to the audience.
Yeah.
Because that work to understand how you actually got through something is a thing. So many of them have already written books. And I find them in my book cohort through my mastermind group that I'm in a speaker mastermind group. So there, a lot of them are already, well-known speakers. And I find them on Clubhouse. I've gotten big into Clubhouse in the last few months, and there's a million people with stories. There's whole rooms on Clubhouse of people just talking about their adversity stories. Yeah. So I go in there and I have my ear pods in, and I'm just screen capturing and circling people all the time. So I believe everyone has a story. Some have really big thises and have gotten on the other side of it and can really share, but I think everybody has a story.
Yeah. And I think everybody needs to, they really need to steal your line to realize that this is not the end of the story. It reminds me of the quote that Humble the Poet said, "You can't use an eraser, but you can't add pages." And so many times we want to go back, and that really traps us into this victim mindset, and we feel like there's no coming out of this. But I think the more we feed the darkness, then the stronger it gets. Versus if you look at it that there are more pages to be written, and there are some great things that are going to come out of your this, then as you add the pages, you're going to find a whole different life ahead of you.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we all come at it a little bit differently, and we have different analogies and things that stick with us. The one that really sticks with me and that I use in the book and I talk about a lot are, this is just like something big happens in your life. This is just one chapter of your life. It's not the whole book. And, this chapter is going to change you. You will be different in the pages ahead, but every good story has some character development. This is your character development. It's your plot twist, whatever. It's not a good one, but that's part of it. But how I put it in the book, you can't rip these pages out or the rest of the book doesn't make sense.
Oh,
you cannot. If something bad has happened and I wanted to rip out was not making the Olympic team. I just didn't want this to be part of my story. Like, how do I undo that I screwed up and didn't make it? And I say screwed up. I mean, I was an athlete. People have good days and bad days. I had a bad day on the day of the Olympic trials. And back then they didn't do it by committee. They actually, you had a trial and either you won or you didn't. I had a bad day. So, and I didn't make it into the, the finalist piece. But I always say that's the first pieces I would have ripped out of my book. In reality, going through that, learning to pick myself up, going on to, put myself out there to be a college athlete, and that became part of my story. Like, the book wouldn't have made any sense if you took those pages out. And so even the worst things, the traumas I've gone through and things like that since then, divorces, you can't just pretend they didn't happen. You have to make that part of your story, know that the character is going to change because this is a character development moment, and then move forward. So the story analogy in the book of your life always is something that really sits well with me, and I try to share.
Yeah. And you write too that to be warned as well, because there are some people, as you write this story, some people aren't going to be a part of your story moving forward either. So they were a part of your character development. So people are sometimes going to come into your life for a reason, season, and a lifetime.
Exactly. Actually, it's funny. I smiled really big when you said that, but I was on the phone with my daughter yesterday. She's 21 and she was in tears. And as we record this, college is wrapping up and she and her boyfriend are breaking up and they dated through
Oh,
college, but they're going to go, they're all like going on to their careers in different directions. But she was all teary. And I said, baby, he came into your life to, be your person during college and like to go through the pandemic with and to have someone to kind of have this experience with. But, he has served his purpose in your life and you get to move on. You get to keep all the fun memories you have and the bad ones too. So you remember that's maybe not your guy.
yeah.
And then, but she learned what she liked in a man, what she didn't like in a man. And she will take that into the next chapter of her life. So that's a very minimal, a breakup of a boyfriend and girlfriend, but that's one concept of people come into your life and you learn and grow.
Mhm.
And she probably learned from him things she did like and things she didn't like in a partner. And
Mhm.
now she'll take that into the next chapter.
Yeah.
Same thing if you get an injury or you get an illness, you learn how you cope and what works for you and how you can get on the other side of it and you take that on with you.
My daughter's 13. So, and I often think, like, when she starts dating or gets hurt, like, Nina, I don't know how I'm gonna handle it because
Oh,
I'm gonna want to go in and make
yeah.
something shake. And to
Yeah.
just sit there and just
Oh,
sit
the
on your
first little
hands as a
boy who broke
parent.
her heart. He's lucky he's still living, my friend. Yeah, I was not. I was ready to go just trap. He was like 15, I think, the first time she got her heart broken. I was ready to go kill
Oh,
this kid. But no, this is a young man, and
yeah.
she handled the breakups that she went through when she was younger. Helped her figure out how to do this, and she made this decision on this one because he totally screwed up, and she made the decision that yep, this is not going to be something I'm going to put up with in the future. And so I was
Yeah.
super proud of her, but she had to learn that on her own. And she knew how mad I'd be because he had screwed up. So she took about 3 days before she called me.
So was it kind of one of those where I told you, well, I spotted this a while back and I tried to warn you?
I would never say I told you so. And I told she knows as well as I do. She's so much cooler than I am.
Yeah.
And like she'll call me and say, Mom, my friends are so screwed up. I did chapter 6 on everybody. Like in the last 5 days, I just sit down with all my friends and do chapter 6. So she's just got a lot more tools in her toolkit than I did at her age. But
Yeah.
no, I would never say I told you so. But I really believe anyone who's a parent out there, we have to let our kids fail.
Mm.
We can't tell them the lessons. They actually have to fail, literally fall on their face sometimes, or have something go wrong, or not get chosen for the team, or not make it into that school play. Emma was a ballet. My daughter's name is Emma. She was a ballerina. She had enough times where she auditioned for the big part and didn't get it. She can handle rejection. She can handle a breakup now, and I feel like that's part of our job as parents to make sure they know how to fail, because life is not all about just success. And that's another thing that I like to say is, success doesn't last forever, but neither does failure. So
Ooh.
you fail, you move on, to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And in a similar situation, in your book, you spoke about the situation that you had when Jake messed up his arm. And I have the words written down. I don't know where I put them, but it was you let him. You didn't launch right into, let me tell you my story. Let me tell you how it's going to end. You let him. Gosh, I wish I knew what the words were, but you let him sit there in that lousy feeling.
Yeah. And I think the words are something like that. I don't remember them either. I should, since I wrote them. But the idea is, I can remember he was sitting on the back porch and he had blown out his elbow. He was going to have Tommy John surgery. All the college, recruiters had been looking at him, and now they were going to look at other boys. And he was just so sad. And I had to just let him sit for a while. He wasn't ready to hear it's all going to be okay, and this is going to make you stronger, and you're going to look back on this and like, no, he was a 17-year-old kid whose dreams had just been crushed. And I just sat there with him and said, this sucks. Like, this is the worst. And like, let him just sit in it for a little while, because he needed that. It takes a little time before you can move on. And it's the stages of grief. So we go, and I talk about that a lot when I speak from a stage, less so in the book, but there's the, denial. Wait, this isn't really happening. I'm going to be okay. Anger. Why the hell this happened to me? I'm really mad. Bargaining. Oh, well, maybe if I just get the surgery, I come back, and then the coaches will come find me again. Like, it's going to be okay. Then you bargain with yourself in your head. And then there's this depression piece when you realize, oh, all of this stuff is me in my head and it's not working. And then you finally get to this magical piece of grief called acceptance. And whether this is an injury or something, or a loss of a loved one, or when you grieve, you get to a piece of acceptance, which is, this has happened and I don't get to be the old me anymore, or I don't get to go back. And the acceptance of, I'm going to be different in the future. I accept that this happened. Then you can start making some good decisions, moving your life forward. But you can't just jump to acceptance. I had to let him sit there a little bit and kind of muddy through all of the other ones with him and just be there for him.
Yeah, they got to kind of figure it
Yes.
out. Yeah, they got to kind of figure it out, because I think the adversity that we go through, there's stages of it. So it's the hardest, like I've told my son, this is the hardest thing that you've ever faced, but it's not the hardest thing that you'll ever face. And so it seems with great significance that you're at a max 100, but then you're going to look back at this as time goes on. Life is long. It's not short.
Yeah.
And so the further you distance yourself from this, then the less, I guess, the more lessons that you can carry forward, but the less pain that you have associated to it. Can you explain the life is long perspective?
Yeah. I love the life is long perspective. They always say life is short, buy the shoes, grab the ring. But I truly believe life is long. In that, back to the book of your life, like where you are, and this is a chapter, starting today, all the pages ahead are empty in this big giant book of your life. So if you're in your 40s, and you live to be 100, I mean, you've got more life left than you already did. I mean, there's a lot of living to do. Life's not over because something goes wrong. Especially when I talk to young people, the language that I use that seems to resonate best with them is, it's not always going to feel like this. Mm-hmm. No one wants to hear it's going to get better and time heals all wounds. It's just they're not ready to hear that
cliche,
yet. Yeah, especially college kids and millennials even. I mean, like, they're like, screw you. Like,
yeah, you're old. You don't know what you're talking
you don't
about.
know. You don't know my world. You
Exactly.
Yes. Who do you think you are? Yeah. So one of the things that the language that I have used that really does seem to resonate, especially with college audiences and college kids who I talk with, is, it's not always going to feel like this. Yes, right now this feels like everything. Like, especially if they've done something really, like gotten drunk at a party, made an ass of themselves in college, they want to drop out because life's over and everybody thinks I'm a jerk now. Yeah. Like, yeah, well, you did own it for one. Like, yep, did it. That was really stupid. Won't be doing that again.
Yeah.
And then two, know that it's not always going to feel like this. All those people who may be disappointed or upset, they are all living in their own little worlds of what's all about themselves. They're not thinking about you anyway. But even when something big happens, so bigger than a drunk at a party and make a jerk of yourself, maybe it's you do have a car accident and it's your fault, or you have a big breakup and you're just heartbroken, or you fail at something that you've been working really hard at. It does feel like a moment. It does feel, because you put so much into that relationship or that class or whatever the thing is that you're going after. So in that moment, it does feel like everything. And it should, because if you tried hard enough and you wanted it badly enough, then it should feel like everything. It's going to really suck and it's going to hurt. But the phrase that works is, it's not always going to feel like this. There's going to be other things you love. There's going to be other things hard things you try to do. And they may, like, it doesn't always feel like this. This will be part of your story. This will be something you got through. And what you do in these moments are important, because moving past it is important. But you get to write your own story on the other side of whatever this big thing is.
Yeah. And it's important to know too, Nina, that, you hear many times where people try something or go through something traumatic and they say, well, I'm not going to try as hard ever again. And I'm like, that's the worst thing you can do. Like, screw it, man. Like put it on the line. I'd rather know for sure that I failed than assume it, that I couldn't make it, that I couldn't succeed. Well, damn it, put it on the line.
100%. Regret's really hard to get past, because if you never tried, you'll never know. And I just think regret is one of those emotions. I think that's one of the hardest ones to deal with, because you can't go back and do over.
Yeah.
One of the things that's really key to people who are going through tough times, or even people who are trying to make big decisions, whether it's in your business or in your life or relationships or whatever. When I get to those points and I can't decide what to do, like, what should I be doing right now? Or sometimes I have too many things that I want to do because I kind of want to try everything.
Yeah.
I like, let's go bouldering and let's take up this.
Yeah.
Like, I want to take up everything. So like sometimes I'll get in those moments and I'll realize in my brain, I can't do everything. Even
I
though
get
want to.
very ADD like that too.
Yeah. So and I think I can do anything.
Yeah,
I'm just
sure.
sort of fearless at this point in my life. Let's take up
Yeah.
something new. But what I do in those moments, or maybe with my company, I want to start 5 companies like this. That's probably not the best idea. Let's start one at a time. He who chases 2 rabbits catches none. Come on, let's focus, Nina. What I'll ask myself is, the me 5 years from now, what does that person need me to do? When I look back and look at the me now, like, what am I going to wish that they had done as a decision? So the me 5 years from now needs me to make a good decision right now. And I pretend I'm like sitting and having a glass of wine with that person, or a bourbon and ginger or whatever. I think I'll probably still be drinking bourbon and ginger 5 years from now.
Amen.
So
is this a reverse resume? Is this along the lines of that?
Yeah. So like 5 years from now, what does that me in the future need me to do right now? What decision do I need to be making? Should I be starting a new company? Should I be taking up a risky sport? Should I be changing a relationship? Should I be spending more time with someone and pouring into them? Or should I be looking at someone else to be pouring into them? You only have so much time to help and be part of the planet you live on. Where should I be using my skills? And the me 5 years from now needs me to make the good decision now and do some smart things. I'm sure me 5 years from now is also going to go, Nina, that was stupid. But
so how do you drill it down? How do you drill it down to say, because I love that quote that you use, he who chases, 2 rabbits gets none. So how do you make a choice, you personally, but then also in a wider aspect too, as people are going through the hurt and coming out of this, what's the first action they should take, or what's the first rule of thumb, I guess?
2 things with that. As far as the first action, I think the very first thing when people go through something is to change the language in their head, because what you say inside your head comes out of your mouth and becomes your story.
Yeah.
So if you are using language like, this is the worst and I can't ever go forward and life's never going to be the same and I just want to crawl in a hole, that becomes your story. You say it out loud, or if you're beating yourself up, like, I'm the worst person and I did this, and like all of the things that are in your head. So first things first, change the language in your head. And for that, I say, just take yourself out of yourself for a moment as if you were talking to a child. What would you say to a child going through this? How would you put the language out there for a child? And I'm pretty sure you'd say something nicer than you're saying to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be my counsel to anyone's going through it. Change the language in your head and make sure what you're saying in your head comes out of your mouth and becomes your story. From a sales perspective, I actually talked to corporate groups on this. Here's a good example. So you step out of a big meeting and something's wrong, like a product launch, and the product's terrible and the teams aren't ready and you can't deliver to market. Like, everything's wrong. It's not going to be good. And you've had a quiet closed door meeting on it with the executive team or whoever you're working with. You step out of that meeting and you go like, oh my God, this is terrible. I don't know what we're going to do. So-and-so didn't do his part. We should have thought ahead to this. How do we not know the market wasn't going to like this? Who was supposed to do the market analysis? Like, you have that discussion and you're walking down a hall and people sort of hear it and they can see your body language and they see the two of you kind of going at each other, whoever group of people. And then, you go about your day, and then that night you go meet a buddy for drinks to talk about something, or maybe you go and you grab your wife and you're going out to dinner and you walk past the bar to get to the restaurant and you see some young people from work at the bar and they're like, oh God, I saw them walk out of a meeting today and shit hit the fan. And they said they're never going to get through this and it's a disaster. And they were like so mad at so-and-so. And then that becomes the story that goes back throughout the company. Okay. Yeah. Same situation. Shit hits the fan. Things don't go well. You step out and your language that you have is, wow, this is going to be a challenge. And we certainly didn't see this coming, but we got a lot of smart people on this. We got to figure this out. We got to figure it out fast. Let's pull in so-and-so. And so you walk having that conversation, the people around you hear that. And Then the same thing, fast forward it to you walking into a restaurant with your wife and seeing some people at the bar, and they're like, oh yeah, they stepped out of some meeting. There's some big new challenge going on, but they apparently have great people that are going to figure it out. It's the same story. Nothing different changed from that meeting to what has to happen next. It's just your language that's in your head that you let come out of your mouth that becomes your story. And that is everywhere in your life, in your business life, in your personal life. So that is really, really key for when you're in the middle of something. You are going to set the stage for how you are remembered in this moment. And your language is really, really key for that.
Yeah. Well put. Well put.
What was the second part of the question? I went off on that for
so how do you simplify it and say this one thing?
Yeah, so this is really fascinating. And I did a bunch of research on this because people always ask me, how did I choose which next career to jump to? And how did I find new success on the other side of failure? And I'm big into the he who chases two rabbits catches none. And you'll find any athlete or any executive or really successful company is that way. Go after one product and own it. Go after like one sport and own it. And that is how you become elite at the elite level of whatever part you're in. But the other key to that, which is really, really important, and I love to share this, is once you look at all your options, you know, in my head, I look at the Venn diagram, the three things. What's the market? Like what's the market need? And then if you can picture the three circles, what's the market need? And then what is my skill set that I'm really good at? And what's my passion? So you need a place where everything overlaps. If it's the market and your skills, but it's not your passion, you're always going to be looking for another job.
Yeah.
If it's the market and your passion, but you don't have the skills, you're going to fail. And if it's your skills and your passion, but there's no market, that's called a hobby or volunteer work, which I know a lot of people who are trying to save the planet who live in that space.
Yeah.
But there's no market for it. So you have to find the happy overlap in the middle. And then once you find something that fits you and you make that decision, the most important thing to get to success is to not second guess yourself, not look at, but I should have done that. Or what if I'd have done that? Or so-and-so is now doing that. Should I change my mind? You've made the decision for a good reason. You have to have faith in yourself and chase after the decision you made. If you are constantly looking at what other people have or the routes that other people took, you'll constantly be questioning the route you chose for yourself. Yeah. And that's just a life of not being your own person. So I don't have the exact language for this because it's something that I usually talk to one-on-one and I haven't done from a stage, but I do know, and it's something that I've been spending a lot of time on. The people that I see who are unhappy are the ones who are questioning their path and keep changing it because somebody else is doing something. Oh, maybe I should have done it that way. I have a podcast. Oh, wait, maybe I should have done a YouTube channel. Oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have done either. And I should just applied for this corporate gig and I could have done that. Like so-and-so got a new car because they did the corporate gig. Yeah. Oh, you down this road, choose it and fall in love with the path that you're on. Fall in love with the decision you made and get excited about it and stay on course. If you're not excited about it and you didn't choose it for the right reasons, then you're going to have a problem. But I think when you do that little Venn diagram and you choose something, you can get that excited about it and then go after it. Yeah. But looking and comparing yourself to others or questioning yourself is really key. And I've even seen this on leadership teams where we've gotten in, we've spent months choosing a product direction or product strategy, and you get the UX team in software. You get the designers team in and you get everybody in, the sales team and everybody agrees that this is the market we're going to do. And we get really excited and we launch it and we put a task force together and, it's SaaS. So we give it a fun project name, all birds we did one year or whatever. So and everybody gets on board. And then all of a sudden the competitor starts doing something different and people start questioning it. Like, no, we did our homework. We know this is we know this. I don't know what they know, but don't look at them. We've done the hard work to figure this out. Go in that direction. Quit looking at them. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't believe there are, I love that. I don't believe there are any bad decisions. It's the decision that you make, because even if it's wrong, I just read Relentless Solution Focus by Dr. Jason Selk. And it's all about training your mind to look for solutions. And even if you make the wrong decision, it's not the wrong decision, because what you're going to be able to do is you'll be able to, what he calls the do wells. You'll spot in there what you did well. And then also you'll be able to find the disconnect and what to do better moving forward from there. But I have 3 dogs, and amazingly, they all want to eat out of each other's bowl, even though it's the same damn food, and it's like, no, I want what he has. And I think that's what we do as people in an effort to be successful, in an effort to recover. We're always trying to eat out of someone else's bowl, when what you need to do, man, you need to make a damn decision, move forward, and really give 0 F's, and just, you got a double middle finger sometimes, and just move forward and say, to hell with it, man. Let's roll, and I'll figure this thing out along the way. I say I'm gonna get a t-shirt that says FIO, figure it out. Because
everyone will make up their own letters for that, and it could be interesting. Their own acronym. That'd be kind of fun, just to walk around with it and see what they came up with.
Very, very, very true.
Yeah.
So you speak a lot about resilience. And I always, until I heard you talk to it, I always thought resilience and persistence were really pretty close to the same thing, but they're not.
No, it took me a while to get there. That was almost a year's worth of research to figure out the word. So how I started on this journey is a great lesson on why resilience is important. So people kept asking me how I found success again, or how I made it through some of the things that I went through and came out stronger on the other side. And it wasn't grit or persistence. And I couldn't figure out what it was that I exactly did. And I realized, as I was coaching other people through their tough times, and I looked back at my own story, that what I did is I got to the acceptance piece of grief quickly. And then I adapted, made changes, and grew in the right direction. And then the right direction just means in a positive way. So when I got to the word, I looked at grit. I read all the books on grit and determination. And, there's speakers that speak on those things too, and they are important. But the pandemic's the best example of this. In 2020, we all woke up in January of 2020, and we made New Year's resolutions, and we were ready to start. And then everybody's plan changed. Yeah. So none of us could just go grit or determination. Like, let's just go harder. Let's just keep going and go hard, double down. We're going to make this happen. We couldn't. This was a big for everybody. We had to adapt and change and grow stronger. And the definition of resilience is the adapt and change through adversity. So when you're met with adversity, you don't just double down and go harder and power through it. You actually have to adapt and adjust in a positive way, is what the definition is. So to be able to adapt and adjust in a positive way is very key. And that word resilience is key for your career, for your parenting. We don't parent all our kids the same. They're all a little different. So we adapt and adjust how we deal with them. We deal with individuals, deal with the same career. Our career, we may have to adapt and adjust when we find out what our skills are, what we're really good at, as you said. So that's the key, is that adapt and adjust and grow stronger. The image that I use from stage when I do big corporate gigs is this giant oak tree here in Charleston. It's called the Angel Oak. And if you've been to the LSU campus, they have this huge oak trees too. Yeah, so you can picture it because you're down that way. So those huge oak trees that kind of go in every direction. Like, at some point, there were thousands of seeds in that field. How did that one seed become that? Like, over all the other ones? Was it a special seed? No, that seed adapted and adjusted, and it grew, and then it made its way over to find the light, and then it dug down deeper to get to the water, and it adapted and adjusted to grow stronger until it was this massive, beautiful thing. And we're the same way in our lives. We have to keep adapting and adjusting and finding what we need to grow stronger. And so I think whether you're a company or whether you're an individual, that adapt and adjust to grow stronger is really key. And that is what resilience is. And we all did it in the last year. So we all adapted and adjusted. None of us did what we planned. We all had to make some changes. So we're all a little stronger than we were.
Yeah. Well, and I think the pandemic has been one of the great equalizers. Because I used to tell my salespeople all the time, stop living in the 8th day of the week someday. But someday got here, and it was everything that you wanted to put off, or that you had been putting off or wanted to start, it was the greatest equalizer, where the world took one big gigantic reset and everything paused. The ballers out there that you wanted to be like, they all of a sudden got hit. And so this was a chance, and still is a chance, for you to be able to look at this situation and say, and I think I totally agree with you, what's the language that you want to apply to this, and get started. And then, how do you propel forward? This could be a tremendous opportunity for you. I think my only fear with some people, Nina, is, instead of fighting during this pandemic and maintaining that growth trajectory, I think many times we've, to use Walmart pickup as a metaphor, we have allowed life to sometimes kind of pacify us in the way to kind of make some things easier. And you've got to be cautioned of that too, where I think you have to push yourself out there even further than that. Speaking of the oak trees, and I know I'm not going to say the word right, but horticulturist or whatever, whoever studies trees, whatever the hell they are. No shade on all the horticulturists that listen to this podcast.
It's not our wheelhouse, folks. Sorry.
But they did a study, the difference between nursery trees and wilderness trees. And you could take a nursery tree that was raised in a nursery and plant it out into the wilderness, it wouldn't survive. It was the tree that was planted in the most adverse situations, where it lacked the nourishment, where animals came and scratched on it, where strong storms came in and knocked their limbs off. And it was all those kind of different things. But as that happened, that tree actually got stronger because it had to adapt along the way, right?
Exactly. I think that's fascinating. I mean, you look at resilient strains of viruses, you look at resilient companies. Lego's one that I use. It almost went under, and then all of a sudden it adapted and changed, and now it's Lego, for crying out loud.
Look at Crocs.
Yes. Like, why are they still here? Excuse me. Sorry to everyone who loves Crocs.
I don't understand. It's
just
like
don't do it.
They
just
were
don't
done.
do it, people. Don't go there.
Nina, I don't have Crocs on right now, but that's my house slippers. So
my son has a pair of camo Crocs. I'm like, why? Don't do it.
He keeps a little bayou to it, huh? Because that's like,
he went to LSU like I did. Yeah. So he just graduated from there last year.
Oh yeah. Those are Bayou Reeboks then.
Exactly. With the camo, it gets his thing. I'm like, I'm going to go old school and put a gibbet in it that says, call your mom. But to your point, I did want to throw in, to your point on 2020 and the resilient piece and all of us making changes. It was a long year, and I do believe we have to give some grace to ourselves. So I was at the beginning of it, I called it the tandemic. So I was like getting tan, I was working out all. I'm like, I'm great. I have time to actually work on me for a little bit.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then about 3 months in, I was like, well, crap, this is going on forever. And then I drank wine and ate Netflix and said, screw it, no one's going to see me. Why do I need to look good?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So. But I just needed some comfort food. Like everybody else, we were scared. People were dying. We didn't know where our careers and our businesses were going under. We're like, I just needed some comfort food. And for me, I had a lot of wine and popcorn and old movies. I'm a little bit of an old soul. I like a good old movie. So
what's your go-to movie? What's one of your favorites?
Singing in the Rain.
Really?
Yes. If you haven't seen it in a million years, just go back and watch it.
I've never watched it.
Okay.
I know of it, of course, but I've never watched it.
Stop. Look, that's your homework for tonight.
All right.
You make some popcorn and have a glass of whatever, even if it's lemonade. You watch Singing in the Rain. You cannot watch it and not smile. And it is just fabulous.
I'm gonna have to do
just
that.
A fabulous flick. So even when the kids were like in high school and they'd come home and I'd be sitting with a big bowl of popcorn and a glass of wine and have that on, they were like, steer clear of mom. She's had a bad day.
She's in that mode.
You do not want to ask her for anything at this time. But so we have to have some grace for ourselves during 2020. We've all been on this journey because the uncertainty was difficult. Uncertainty is a really difficult, that's why resilience is so key, because we all had this level of uncertainty that causes anxiety, especially people like me who are like, I like to have a plan. I like to have goals and go after them. And it was really difficult to even stick to my goals. And I kept changing them and I kept coming up with new plans because I didn't want to feel like I was doing nothing. So there has to be some grace to ourselves and some kindness to ourselves for the year that was 2020, because that level of uncertainty is very difficult to deal with. Now, you don't stay there. The me 5 years from now needed me not to sit and binge watch Netflix forever.
Right.
So I did get back on back in the game and lost the weight that I gained and, got to working out again and fit back into my clothes and all those things. I can't live in sweats forever. So you can't stay there, but you need to be kind to yourself. If you're maybe listening and you're still in that space, time to get going again. Don't stay there.
Yeah.
But it's okay that you were. You can't, what is this? How does the saying go? It's one of my favorite sayings and it's not coming to me. You can't go back and get a new beginning, but you can start today and create a new ending.
Yes.
So just today, make some decisions for the you 5 years from now and, go to a different cocktail or less of it and something else that's a little better for you and get off the couch and go for a walk.
Yeah. What do you like to, besides movies, what books do you like to read?
So I call it, what do you consume? Because I think it's really important. Whatever you let into your brain becomes part of you. So I don't remember all the books I read, but they're all a part of me somewhere in my brain. I like to read, but I'm really odd. I will be one of those people back when we all used to go to the bookstore and I
still do. Like my day off, that's like a perfect day off for me.
Yeah. I like books with pages.
Yeah.
I like to dog ear them and write them, like Crossing the Chasm and Inside the Tornado, which are two software technology growth books. I probably have read them all when I was in the tech business, probably 5 or 6 times through the years. And I have the date that I wrote the note in. I'm like, we're right here in this part. And we're right here. Now we're going public. Like, I love that having the book be part of my story, so I can go back and see my journey.
Yeah.
So I like physical books, but I am one who will go to the bookstore and buy a whole bunch of books. And actually learned this from a former manager, CEO that I worked with. I don't read the whole thing a lot of times. I read and I grab the pieces that mean something to me. Sometimes I start them and they don't speak to me and I don't feel guilty just putting them away and going, nope, that's not for me. But I like to consume material that way. I don't do a lot of fiction reading. I really like books on business and strategic, like strategy and future thinking. I love to read stuff from futurists, like Harvard Business Review. I've read all of theirs and like that piece of where the world's going. But when it comes to movies, sometimes I'll do documentaries. I will sit and do a documentary.
Yeah, I love documentaries.
And then sometimes they just put me to sleep. So it's a good way to fall asleep if I need a documentary, because some are better than others. But my go-to in movies, it's my own genre. I call it the mindfuck movies, like the ones that like they aren't in sequence. So I like Inception, Terminator. Like all the ones that make you think about, wait, where are we in this story? Yeah. So those types of movies are my favorite, and they're my go-tos when I want to. And there's some new ones that were out, like 24 was one. It was some good stuff out there.
Yeah.
And where this jump in mind and jump in the time continuum,
Yeah. Well, you like the art of trying to piece it all together.
Mm-hmm. It's all like a big puzzle to me. Yeah. And even when I was a kid, I liked puzzles and that piece of it. I think that it's fun to use your brain that way.
Yeah, I do too. And I think, curiosity is a major component that has helped get you through, I would venture to say, and it's helped me get me through as well. It's maintaining your curiosity where you develop a fascination. My darkest times is where it's intriguing to me now. And it was more as much as it sucked to walk in to the same dealership that I was demoted from. I did it. And because it became a challenge. It was dark, it hurt, but also I like the intrigue of it all. And I've moved back up and I'm even better than I was before. But it took bottoming out and then connecting the dots from there, where it's like, I'm going to show you I'm not done, And
it's all a learning opportunity too. I mean, I've been fired. My brother was a car dealer for years, and he was.
Oh, really?
He was a GM at one point. Yeah. Oh, 1 year he didn't make 1 month he didn't make his number. And I come into some money with the company. I'm like, I will come buy a new car from you, damn it. Yeah. So yeah, so he was a GM of a car dealership, but they made a change, and so it was really heartbreaking for him because he loved his people and his team and stuff.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that world. But we talked, and he went on and he works in a SaaS company now that deals with car dealerships and the technology they use for their marketing. So yeah, it all becomes a new part of your journey, and beating yourself up and staying in that space doesn't really work.
Well, isn't it funny how the pain becomes your purpose?
Mm-hmm.
And so the things that you've gone through, had I not gone through what I've gone through, I wouldn't have came out with the sales life. I would have had no need. And it was through all of that. And then all of a sudden, people were like, dude, I didn't know you went through that. But the fact that I can share not only helps me, but it also resonates with others along the same lines that you do too, that lets people know that they're not alone.
Right. And that's the key to it. And failure is part of life. We all have like the ups and downs of life. Every good story, every good movie, every good book you read, they have big, great things that happen in the low moments. I mean, that is a good story. So it's a good life. If you're making some adjustments and changes and things are failing, it means you're trying hard things.
Yeah.
If you have just like a really boring story, nobody wants that. You gotta have to have the like, and for people who are software, like I call it A/B testing, so you can put both, like, if sometimes you'll try something and you'll put it out in the universe, even if it's the social media, and you put out this great, maybe it's this video and nobody listens to us. Like we're just talking to each other right now. Maybe we suck that bad right
and
now.
And that's just fine.
And we put it out in the universe. Okay.
Yeah.
And nobody watched it, but and like crickets, nothing happens.
Yeah.
That is just A/B testing. Okay, that didn't work. Nina's not a good guest. Let me find somebody else. Like
anyway,
exactly. So that is the reality. You got to try it. And if it doesn't work, then that didn't work. You can go in a new direction. Or maybe everybody thinks we're great and we have this great feedback from this. So you do more like this. And there's other, people, like more people like me. So that is part of that, trying new things. And I like it that you're willing to share that when you got demoted. I think we've all been in spaces where we've been demoted or let go. I was let go and I had to go, tail between my legs and go work at another TV station, and was heartbroken.
Yeah.
And I felt like because being on TV is very public too.
Yeah.
So you're just like, everybody's going to be looking at me funny.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, mine was a budget cut, and there was other stuff with it. I had to actually say we left on good terms, but people knew better. People knew that wasn't it. I do think I have it in here. It's in my office, which is right next to my audio booth here.
The layer.
I have a thing on the wall, and it's a little piece of paper. And then I have, you can buy in the craft store little mirrors, like different shaped pieces of mirrors for putting on stuff. You might not know that.
No, I know. I have a feminine side to my.
Okay, if you've been to Michael's and you like,
I love Michael's,
you can buy little mirrors, like little circle pieces of mirror to put up something. So I highly suggest people do this. Get a piece of white paper, go buy one of those little discs of a mirror. I think mine's about 2 inches wide. It's about that big. I stuck it on there, and then I wrote in my own handwriting underneath it. It says, do you have a problem? And it says, look here. And it points to the mirror.
Love it.
Yeah, because pretty much, like, could I have been doing something different if I was ever some of it goes back to me. I was asking for too much money, so they let me go, because I had gotten too big for my britches. Or maybe I wasn't working hard enough in other instances when I didn't get the promotion I thought I deserved. Maybe I could have worked harder and done things differently, or been more anticipatory in my service and understood what my managers needed. Like there's a million things. So the little mirror with the, do you have a problem? Look here.
You're the problem and the solution.
Yeah, you're it. You are the problem. But no one's going to fix it but you.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a absolute joy, and I hope that you would come back on again, because Nina, I have a bunch of notes and a bunch of questions I wanted to ask you, and we never got to it because I totally got sucked into the conversation, and have thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you so much. So moving forward, as you move forward, what would you want to tell the listeners, and what are you doing moving forward for yourself?
I am in, like everybody else, I've gone through this transition and this making changes over the last few years. I think we've all done a lot of soul searching. about where we really want to be and what we really want to be doing with our lives, because we had to sit home and think, which is uncomfortable for a lot of people to sit and think, but we were forced to. So like many of you, I spent the time rethinking. So I'm really launching back into my NSP communications. So I'm launching back into my executive coaching, because a lot of companies are going through transitions right now, or going for safe rounds of funding, or starting new things. So I'm working in that space. But my passion that I will have started, that I'm going to keep doing, is this podcast. So again, it's called This Seriously Sucks, the right podcast when life goes wrong. And that will continue. And it's on Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you find a podcast,
Everywhere.
it's there. I don't have plans to write another book anytime soon, but my 2 books are out there in the world for anyone who wants to like get inside my head and have any other of my pearls of wisdom, if they help you. If there's a nugget in here you like, you might find something in there you like. And again, I am not a psychologist or an expert. I'm just someone who has gone through a lot of things and spent a lot of time thinking about how I was successful and putting that out there for other people. So I continue to go down that road. My number one piece of counsel for anybody who is listening is just stop for a moment, get real quiet, and ask yourself what the you 5 years from now needs you to be doing right now, and start doing it. And if you're not doing it, just start doing it.
Yeah. Leap and find your wings, right?
Yeah, that's how that works.
Nina, thanks so much for coming on. It's been an absolute joy.
Thanks so much, Marsh.
Yes, ma'am.